Hi everyone, welcome to the Subby Podcast. Today I'm joined by Gary Jacobs, who's the Managing Director of EaziTax. Not known Gary all that long, but Gary's company, EaziTax, they've become a Subby Hub partner, so we're really working hard to hear more about what they're doing and what they can do for tradesmen, subcontractors, and obviously as the series goes on, this is really focused around COVID, what we've been through and what we're going to do. So welcome, Gary. How you doing?
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much indeed for allowing me on here. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be good fun. It's always nice and relaxed. Don't panic. Just imagine we're having a pint and having a chat, and it's all nicely does it. So let's kick it off. So tell me a bit more about EaziTax and what you do there.
Well, basically, I'm an accountant in practice, but EaziTax as a company started basically from a shed at the bottom of my garden, 1996, I think it was. And I've done, we do accounts and tax returns. We look after subcontractors, well, in the thousands now, and a lot of big construction companies. We're fairly specialist. We've got a product called Builder Tax, which, strangely enough, does tax for builders.
You are. It does exactly what it says on the tin.
Yeah, I thought of that name. We are big in three areas. We do ground transport through driver tax. We do secure tax, which is a security industry, and construction.
Yeah.
I don't go out of my zone, so we're pretty specialist in what we do.
Okay.
And I also I'm involved in payment companies and some legal stuff about engaging people. So I've been in practice for a long time. Because I'm so steeped in the trade, we know our way around. So we do accounts and consultancy. We've got loads of contract. Obviously, we're busy at the moment. People are getting their CIS repayments in nice and quick. And I do general consultancy advice. So I'm a good, strong belt and braces general accountant that deals from big to small. So that's it, really.
Yeah, it's got good coverage. I think that's why it works, having you as a partner, because you get in the smaller subcontractors right up to our bigger clients. So it's good coverage there and how you can help them. Well, I suppose we can't avoid it, can we? We can't avoid talking about COVID. So what should we start with? Let's start with personally. How's it been for you personally? Well,
it's as you can see, I'm in my loft, so I think that sums it up for a lot of people. I mean, we haven't stopped. Because for us, most important thing is stay safe.
Yeah.
Each of the rules and everything else. However, one thing that you're not hearing much about is that we still need to feed ourselves and we still need to put food on our table. So as a company, when lockdown started, obviously we're accountants. We can work from anywhere. There's 14 of us. We're a medium-sized practice. We're already set up. Everything. Basically, somebody comes to us and brings me a bag full of receipts. We're used to that because been around for a long time and seen it. But we still digitise everything. So we made sure in the early days, and this happened to a lot of companies. So our experience is relevant. We all of a sudden had to be able to work from home in a week.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a massive challenge for companies like ours because we deal with data, but our job is to help humans deal with data and compliance. So for me, it's been weird. My adult son moved home. He's got quite bad asthma. I've just to slightly overshare. I'm considered at risk because and we were talking about this. I think it's a big deal. I was supposed to go in and have an elective procedure, a small operation.
Yeah.
I'm a healthy guy generally. I'm used to. For me as well, I love my martial arts, and that stopped. I haven't hit anybody in weeks. Actually, I should say that I haven't been hit. I'm more for getting hit these days than a hitter. But so we've come home. There's me, my wife, 2 dogs, and my son. I have been living in this loft because clients needed help. It went from C-bills, the bounce back loans, individual cease loans. And I think I'll talk a bit about that later because it's quite a big deal. People didn't know what to do. They couldn't work.
Yeah.
they have to put food on the table. So I've become an expert, or my whole company's become an expert on universal credit. But I've spent the past 12, 13 weeks coming to work in my loft every day. And you know what's weird is that there's people furloughed and people locked down, people on lockdown. Financially, if they're okay, they're getting bored. So I've heard that there's like a big up, people buying modelling kits. And I mean, my garden's never looked so good because my missus is out there all the time.
I don't think Amazon drivers have ever been so busy.
No.
Getting something delivered every day in my road. It's just unstoppable.
It's interesting because on the other side of my business, we deal with a lot of drivers.
Yeah.
And the Amazon drivers, 25% up, all of them. And
yeah.
To be fair.
So on the whole, really then, you're obviously working from home. The business, EaziTax, has continued. The staff have just gone back to working from their homes and everything's continued as normal, so to speak.
Well, we furloughed one member of staff.
Okay.
Because, bless him, is one of the juniors and he needed supervision.
Right. That makes sense.
Because every accounting practice, you're constantly training your staff up. So we had one of the youngsters was not been with us that long. He couldn't quite believe his luck. His dad phoned up and went, "Can't you do anything with him?" I mean, he's got further. We have Zoom staff meetings quite a lot.
Yeah.
And he always used to, all I ever saw was the top of his hat. Just like, and and then when he was obviously furloughed, you don't see him at all. And I'll talk a bit about that as well, because people got very confused there. So we furloughed one member of staff because he was a junior training with us, needed to be supervised. But everybody else has just kept on. And to be honest, I haven't worked hours. I mean, I've been doing 10, 12-hour days.
Yeah.
Because there isn't a client that we haven't had contact with to say, are you all right? What do you need? Have you claimed for this? Have you claimed, there's 4 main claims that people make.
Yeah.
And so we literally, we've been sending out stuff. We've been putting loads of stuff on the website. But at the end of the day, people want practical help. So I've never been so busy. We've worked through weekends, but that's what we're here for. Don't get me wrong. I'm not
great. So, I mean, you just started to touch on it then. I think this is what everyone listening is going to be really, really interested to hear is the lay of the land. And is there a common trend with your clients, especially the subcontractors? Let's go specifically with them. Is there a common trend? Is there a common issue through them going through this process that you've seen?
Yeah, well, there's 2 things that's happened. Let's talk about companies first of all.
Yeah.
The information that was given out to most of my medium to larger contractor clients, big groundworks, big brick, I've got some big bricklaying companies as well that I look after, and their problem was that it was unclear when to finish a contract because they were starting to invest in PPE for their men and to put guidelines on, and then the contract went, and a lot of these guys not went, but it was put on hold.
Yeah.
For a lot of companies, there wasn't a clear message as to when to lock down. Now, a lot of my guys a lot of my bigger clients are coming out of lockdown, and contracts are starting. But I've noticed the contracts are starting, the money's not starting. And in that period, there's 2 options for company, or 3 options, I should say, for companies. The first one is furloughing staff. Mm-hmm. Now, everything that I'm going to talk about hasn't gone yet, and can still happen. But and let me just explain very quickly that laws were made at speed. I've been involved now. I'm an accountant with a kind of legal specialisation. I get involved in a lot of legal aspects of the industry. I second seat solicitors because we talk about the engagement of workers and try to do tribunals and that sort of thing. Normally, when a piece of legislation comes out, like the VAT legislation that started to come out, it comes out. You have a 6-month wait period when everybody gets a chance to have their say.
Yeah.
Then big associations and organisations argue, then they put out a second stage. Even if it's a private members bill or anything, you have this kind of year-long discourse before it happens. Mm-hmm. To be fair to the government, these laws were made in a week. You know, the loans, the negotiations with the banks, the details of how it's going to happen was coming constantly. And one of the important things about laws is that they need definition. So a law will come out and say, we believe this. It's then up to courts and tribunals to define what that actually means in practice.
Gotcha.
So what was happening is one of the biggest things that happened, first of all, is they brought out some laws relating to companies. Then they brought out some laws relating to individuals. Yeah. And every small limited company where the guys took their money out by dividends. Yeah. And let's be honest, these weren't multi-millionaires. These were guys turning over a couple of 100,000 that were too big to be a sole trader, but too small to be a big entity. Yeah,
very big chunk of them. Big chunk of them.
Yeah, big chunk of my clients just fell through the gap in the middle. You could basically, they were saying to everybody, we're going to claim back. If you've got staff, you can furlough and you can do these business interruption claims. And if you were paid as an individual with CIS claims, the self-employed grants, and they fell through the middle, and a lot of people got very unhappy. But actually, it was just missed by the legislators. They didn't necessarily understand how these things worked in principle. Yeah. A lot of accountants like me were involved in speaking to them, and then they finally came out with a way to deal with it. And to be fair to our government, and this isn't a political statement, everything that's happened, they were learning as they went along. There were problems with the sites, the way they were set up. There was problems with how the money went out. But this was because it was like this. It was all immediately, it had to happen. So
quickly, didn't it? It definitely did happen so quickly. We touched on it before we started this, and I've always felt like when, Boris came out and said construction can go back to work as of Wednesday, I kind of thought, did it ever really stop? Where were we ever told? I don't remember us ever being told to stop, let alone to start. And I agree with you. I think there's been a lot of information, but not much about process and how to do it. And I think this is one thing I really wanted to touch on with you today, because you've been really focused on the process and getting how. It's all very well saying, let's just say as an example, there's 50 grand out there for you based on your turnover. Oh, great. That's what we got. That's what we got told. We didn't get told there's 50 grand out for you. There's a PDF. Follow it step by step to get the money. And that's something you've been working on really hard with you over the period with your clients, haven't you?
Well, we've actually gone out. Hopefully some people would have caught us. I made a decision fairly early on that we do look after our clients first, but what we did was we had a very personal approach with our clients to make sure they were done. The minute they were sorted, we went public with everything we were doing. I'm not really being critical, but there was a lot of accountants that just closed the doors and didn't know what to do. Yeah. So, and I can tell you now exactly what people needed to do. If you're a company, you had to look at furloughing. And furloughing was really simple. You will get 80% back of the cost of people on your payroll, but you've got to make sure that you don't need them, because when you furlough, that's it. They can do nothing, and they can't get involved. The only proviso of that is when a director of a small limited company furloughs himself.
Right. Okay.
And that's quite a simple one now. We know this, and that's gone.
That bracket you touched on, Gary, those kind of, let's say, 100 to 200 turnover limited companies. Are you talking about those smaller limited companies?
Yeah. So what happened was no one knew what was right and what was wrong. And I can tell you, even though everybody was being encouraged to furlough and get their loans and get everything else, when this is over, the inspectors will be in to check to try and harvest some of that money back from the HMRC, without a doubt, under the guise of making sure it was done properly. Yeah. So here's the perspective. So bigger company, you'd furlough. But what was never really explained, you really must only furlough the staff, and you can still furlough. There's an extension coming out. I mean, listen, my proviso and all of this, you need to speak to your own accountant. Anybody can get in contact with us, and I know we've got links from the site. I'm going to put some side, and what I'm saying, this is free info, right? This isn't. There's nothing attached to this, because this is the thing. You know, my poor missus is out there delivering food to little old ladies. I'm stuck in here, but this is the one thing we can do to help, is to try and make sure we can help as many people as possible. Yeah. So, for a larger company, furloughing. If you're going to furlough, that's it. They can't email, the member staff can't do anything. They are out and off. They're not redundant, but they're as if they're held in suspended animation. Yeah. It's a minimum of 3 weeks. If you want them back again, you've got to wait till after those 3 weeks, and then you've got to come back in. And the whole thing about furlough is to stop redundancies. And that really took the pressure off, because for most companies it's their wage roll, which is wage roll and stock, and your stock in trade and your purchase of goods and materials. However, goods and materials is kind of related to the contract that you're on, and obviously everybody's very different, but that was the one thing they could do. So furloughing was the first one. The second one was if you're big enough to get a business interruption loan, a CBIL loan. Yeah. Now, what the government turned around to the banks and said is, you can give these loans. The problem is with the business interruption loan, and to be honest, I don't want to. This isn't one to go into detail on, because you need to speak to your accountant about it. But the banks had a field day with it. I saw repayments of 16% and 15%. The loans were a partially backed, 80% backed business interruption loan. You had to prove that your figures were going down and why. We spent ages with bigger clients preparing and re-preparing their accounts like they were going for refinancing anyway. So it was a very financial undertaking, like they might as well have gone for a massive contract. And a lot of them still haven't got the loans, but they would presume. Well, let me put it this way. You've got to remember that the government's view on this is not a compensation. It's there to keep you trading. Yeah, of course. So, my problem was, if a company was struggling when this started, the chances are you'd continue on struggling because you couldn't get the money quick enough. Yeah. So the CBIL and furlough was aimed at the big companies, and that just needs love and attention, understanding of the minutiae, and it's got to be done. And that was done, and that's what I spent the first month doing for the bigger clients. Yeah. For normal guys, there's three more things to think about. For the limited companies, smaller limited companies, the one thing I was going to say, for what we found was directors didn't know what to do. So there's you and there's two directors, you and a mate. You've got into business together. You're doing quite well. You've maybe got a couple of subbies, but you don't use them all the time. Yep. Our classic micro business, small to SME style UK business, which the construction industry is from 1 to 10 guys. Yeah. That's it. And that's a lot of the work that I do. They first of all had to make sure that their subbies knew what to do. Yeah. So we went in first of all to make sure the subbies could still put food on their table when the contract stopped, or knew where they stood on or where we're going, and we'll get to that in a second. But for them, they had to furlough themselves if there was no contract going. They weren't working. And quite simply, then you have certain obligations as director of a company to keep the company going. So you still got to do a company return. You still got to do the what they said was you have to furlough yourself from anything that in effect earns you money. So no sales, no management, no undertaking, no buying. That's what the furlough was. But you still have to fulfill your obligations of the director of a limited company to company's house. Okay. So it meant that, but I will tell you now, when inspectors start to do small inspections and inquiries, what we call a Section 9A, they will look at your emails. If you were a furloughed director, they will say, Can we look at your email history? Can we look at they will want to see that you've done nothing to do with the running of the company while you're being paid to do it.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. You know it's coming. I mean, after this, the days of getting a PPI call will be long gone. You'll be getting calls for were you wrongly furloughed, or were you forced to work when you were furloughed? That's the next thing coming.
100%. And of course, what the government did, the one thing the government didn't do well, is there was no clarity. They weren't necessarily clear.
Yeah.
So I think it was interesting because, we now have a skeleton staff who are coming into the office.
Okay.
So we've started this in the past couple of days.
Yeah.
So my practice manager went in there, and we've got all everything's in 2 meter squares, and there's masks and I've done a risk assessment all properly. You cannot at the moment force anybody back to work. What it says is you can furlough is by agreement, so both parties had to agree.
Yeah, okay.
And coming back to work, both parties have to agree, which is, I suppose, is good if you're not a good boss or not a good worker, because it means that no one can do each other. But it actually just makes it unclear as to what you're supposed to do. So if you have a member of staff that comes back to you and says, everybody in my house is safe, no one's vulnerable, no one's shielded, no one's at risk, but my anxiety levels are really high and I don't feel I can come back. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, my personal opinion on it is it's a personal choice. This is not, as an example, this is not, I've had a cold, been off for 2 weeks. Let's see the typical, ring your boss, say, I feel better now. Well, are you sure? Because I don't want the office getting it. No, I'm fine. Okay, great, come back. This is more, I've got to think about this aspect or that aspect, or my elderly parents, or my, like you say, the anxiety of it. There's so many aspects to this where I don't think you can turn around and not judge is a bit of a strong word, but, think different of someone because they don't want to return to the office.
I mean, we were talking about this before. I think I started to say, I'm normally a pretty healthy, I think robust is the word, guy. And I've been told, my GP says you're at risk. I'm at risk because I'm, got a hole in my arse. It's horrific. And the suggestion to me is, you've got to stay in your loft for a bit longer. Yeah. That doesn't go with my nature.
No, I know what you're saying. So do you think... I mean, the one big thing I'd like to ask is, everyone that comes on the podcast is to see, well, client-wise, this whole pandemic, I know it's fingers crossed, it's a one-off, right? It doesn't happen for another 100 years. But do you think there's some parts of this, especially from an accounting point of view, cash flow and everything like that these subbies will look at this and say, I've got to do things a little bit different just to learn from this?
There is... I mean, strange enough, there is something like this, not in our industry, not in our trade.
Yeah.
But do you remember the ash cloud, the volcanic ash cloud?
Yeah.
Closed down the travel business.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Like that. So it was interesting because I had a very similar podcast with a ground transport association. We were doing this, and I said this, and I said, do you remember what happened? Did anybody learn any lessons? And the answer is everybody remembered, because everyone lost their contracts. Yeah. Everything stopped. Nobody moved. And did anybody learn their lessons? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So this is... Let me talk about the good things that's come from this. And apart from more people that die than I'd ever want to hear about ever, we have to be... but also, listen, my view on this is I worry about my guys. You've got to put the food on the table and feed your family. That, as a friend of mine is a medic, and he was saying that his greatest worry is as many people are going to die of not having access to good medical care because of this than actually will die from Covid-19. Now, that's, listen, I'm an accountant, I'm not a medical expert, but the point he was making is the fallout from this. So let's look at some of the positives. For smaller businesses, the bounce back loan has been a godsend. And the bounce back loan, and if you don't mind, although I will talk more about it, let me just be very clear so that people understand, because it's the most, people don't get it. And the bounce back loan is really simple. You can be a sole trader or you can be a limited company.
Yeah.
You claim up to 25% of your turnover.
Yeah.
And you can claim between £2,500 and £50,000. You have 6 years to pay it off. The first year is interest free, and it's at 2.5% for every year thereafter. That, for many firms that were trading well of that size, should get us through this. Yeah,
definitely.
And let's talk about the contractors themselves. Let's talk about the guys.
Yeah.
I'm not forming an opinion. I'm just telling you. Every guy that underdeclared his tax return and every guy that never did a tax return, I don't think is ever going to make that mistake again. Yeah. Because the government brought out help for all of those that declared and did a tax return.
Yeah.
I'm not judging those that don't. We have loads of clients on our books, but I don't think any of these guys will. I think anybody would be mad not to make sure their tax return is done in future, because I've always said to clients, I do a lot of like back duty claims where somebody's come to me and they said, look, I haven't done my tax return for 3-4 years, and we'll go to the Inland Revenue and we'll, HMRC, and we'll negotiate for them. But the one thing I've always said is, if you want to get universal credit, if you want to get your national insurance and everything else, for the amount of tax that many people pay, if you're on the CIS scheme, it's different. But other people do work in and out of that. But the other thing, with the CIS scheme, you're mad not to do it because you get your expenses back. But I think that this has given a chance for people to look at how they work and see where the holes are. If you can survive this, companies with remote working, I've got to say, although construction's coming back with a bang, and I hope it will do for all of our sakes, I don't think the commercial property market, people are looking at offices like, do we really need them in the same way that we used to before?
Definitely. Definitely.
It's made people learn how to run the internal aspects of their business better.
Yeah.
Because if you do it without... So I always used to make this joke. I've always had my staff in the office because I need everybody near enough to slap the back of their head. A joke, I would like to say. Yeah. But you know what I mean? I'm a bloke who I've never...
Just to reiterate to the listeners, that was a joke. That was a full-blown joke. There's no seriousness in it.
But and to be honest, it was like an internal joke between us, because I always used to say, because what I wanted was I don't want to sound too wet, but we're like a family. A lot of my staff have been with me for a long, long time. I started in a shed at the bottom of my garden, and my practice manager is the lady that was sitting opposite me in a shed like 20 years ago. This is how we've grown. We've realised that because our systems are good and our processes are good, we can actually work remotely. I'm telling you now, we won't. But it means that even within the office, with the new Covid-19 measures, people aren't going to be standing over each other's desks.
Yeah, it can be flexible. Yeah, definitely.
Well, we've now put in an internal structure so that two people in an upstairs and downstairs in our office can still work on the same piece of work from their computer. Right. It's a small change, but it means that we, along with every other company, I don't care what you do, have learnt to get the internal because that's what I always moan at my clients for. Internal financial processes, internal organisational processes, get them strong, and the better your processes, the easier your life is. And people have actually seen why.
Yeah.
Started to do it, and it's forced people to make some of those fixes. I think that I think construction. I believe that construction won't suffer in the long term, and I believe that. I think the travel industry will, but I think that people are ready to come out. But I think that we've learnt to value each other more. We've learnt the value of relationships with our suppliers and our clients more, and we've learnt what's important to us. Yeah. And I think, without getting too wet, our ability to be kind to each other has just been gobsmacking throughout this.
Yeah, it's been mind blowing. people have come to the table to try and help, the subby partners and everything like that, and really, really shown, that we start to collaborate, everyone can go further. Everyone can go further. This kind of thing about, this old stereotype, I don't want to help him, because if I help him, he might shoot ahead of me and leave me behind. And it really isn't. It's not like that. The more we help each other, the better we can be, definitely.
Well, as I said to you, some of the work that we've been doing is not with clients. Anybody that comes, and I'll tell you even now, anybody that comes to us, and I think that you, I'll tell you what, I've never known I've got to know my neighbours so much better, and all of a sudden, everybody's, funny enough, we had somebody come around that was late at night that was looking at cars. They're up there and they were good. No one stands a chance in most neighbourhoods anymore, because we've got like a WhatsApp group, neighbours are talking to each other.
Yeah, that's it.
It's been a long time since it's been like that. So, but I also think that one of the things that the phrase like "How are you" has actually had greater meaning. I mean, I don't want to get too maudlin, but I've within my friendship group.
Yeah.
One of my friends, unfortunately, died due to Covid-19, and another friend of mine has just come out of hospital on a ventilator for 19 weeks.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, mate. Sorry to hear that.
No, but and also, bless him, he's come at, 9 weeks, and he's having to, I don't think people realise that being on a ventilator for that long, he's going to have all kind of, I mean, my daughter's a frontline NHS worker, speech and language therapist. And that's hard. We haven't seen her, I think. But I think that if it's touched you in a way, you get it. You get what's going on. But I don't blame people for not. So getting back to putting food on the table, one of the things that is really important is a lot of people still aren't claiming what they're entitled to, and we're talking really about the subbies themselves. If I could really briefly just talk about the self-employed grant.
One thing just before we finish it up is just to be really clear for the listeners on, whatever 2 or 3 key things that you think are still out there, still very much within reach for the listeners to get at. Right.
The bounce back loan is still there. I explained it in detail before. It's still there to be applied.
Yeah.
Your accountant should know all about it. You can go onto our website and look at it. It's really easy. gov.uk. You just can go on there and it will push you there. You then get pushed to your bank or a bank. It doesn't have to be your own bank. And the bank will have a way, especially if you do online banking, it's easy. But I've got to tell you guys, this is also what your accountant's there for. Anybody that wants to go through the bounce back loan, we're happy to speak. It's not a big deal. But more importantly, for the everyday guys, for most contractors, you are entitled to a grant for 80%. All you've got to have done is an 18-19 tax return, and they will go back up to 3 years. You need 2 things in order to get this grant. You need a personal tax account, which they're calling a gateway. But actually, this personal tax account has been available to everybody for years. Even if your accountant puts your tax return in it, it's not your tax return in electronically. It's not that gateway. It's a special area for you.
Okay.
Once again, I'm going to give everybody a link. There's a link on your website, a link on our website that will take you straight in. And again, what we've done is, it's no good me just talking about it. You need to be shown how to do it. I mean, I'm the same. So we've got this on a really simple PDF on your phone or computer that you go through, and it's got the individual screenshots, and it tells you, push this button, push that button, do this.
Brilliant.
If you still can't get it, you phone us and we'll go through. But everybody's come back to me and said it works.
Right.
So you get your personal tax account. The second thing is you do the eligibility test, and which, once again, we've got a link to it. It's really straightforward. It's on the gov.uk website. Now, you can do it through our website, but do not do it through anybody else's websites. You don't need the gov.uk website. You go direct. Once again, we've got a PDF that shows you. Basically, you download it. You can either look at it on a screen, look at it on your phone direct from the website, and it just talks you through it step by step. If you do those things, you then get a date. You go into the website and they give you a loan. A grant.
Yeah.
It's free money. However, it's taxable. So it has to go in your tax return for next year. because it's there to replace the money you would have earned if you were working. There's nothing else relating to it. All you've got to do is have done an 18-19 tax return from last year. Once again, your accountant should help you. Don't be scared of it, do it. The bounce back loan. Bounce back loan is aimed at any business, limited or non-limited. Do it, and don't be put off by it. Don't be scared. The government has done that so that you can get money in and feed your family, so you don't have to do anything silly. And I can't tell you, once again, we've got the links and everything else. It's there for you, and that's the thing that's got to me is a lot of people go, "Oh, I'm not too sure." That do it. That's what it's there for. It's not. There's no bad related to this at all.
Okay,
I'll get off my soapbox now.
Brilliant. Well, listen, absolute pleasure having you on, Gary, and thanks for all the information. We're going to stick all the links, all the PDF links, so everyone who's listening can get involved. And obviously, if you want to get in touch with Gary, that'll also be there as well. Gary, stay safe, mate. Thanks very much
and
for coming
stay
on,
safe.
and we'll speak again very soon.